Carolyn, say hello to everyone at home.
Hello everyone at home, I'm Carolyn.
Tell us your story. How did you end up here in the middle of the Coconino National Forest in an RV?
It's a good question. It's kind of a long story. I think it started when I was a kid. I actually have been thinking about it a lot lately, and I was kind of born into a nomadic life. I went to 13 different elementary schools before I hit 6th grade and lived in 4 states. And then I think I spent the rest of my life trying to be the exact opposite of what my parents were. So I spent the rest of my life seeking security and seeking everything that they weren't and everything I didn't have growing up. So I did the college thing, did the career thing, got the house, got the husband, and just spent my life chasing the American dream because I thought that's what normal people do, because I wasn't raised by normal people. So I did that for a long time. And by the time I had the house and the husband and the career, I was a raging alcoholic.
Well, small price to pay.
Small price to pay. And it kind of took me some work in the last 7 years to realize the reason that happened is because I was living a lie. And I needed to medicate myself with alcohol to live a life that I really didn't believe in. And I think it took me a while to realize that. I got sober 7 years ago. The economy crashed in 2009. I lost my job a year after I got sober, lost my job, lost the house, booted the husband, and lost a dog. It was a rough year, and started my own company. I started my own consulting practice. And being my own boss for the last 7 years was kind of what started me toward a different way of thinking. All of a sudden, I didn't have to sit in a cubicle 40 hours a week. I didn't have to answer to anyone. I could make my own hours. I could work with my own schedule, and I could decide who I wanted to work for and the types of work I wanted to do. It also allowed me to seek out 2 of my passions that I had left behind, backpacking and traveling. So all of a sudden, now that I'm my own boss, I can take a month off to travel Europe, and I can take a month off to backpack. And in the last few years, I've traveled by backpack, by feet, several hundred miles, and I've been to 8 countries. So those together have kind of led me to where I am today. Deciding I like adventure, I like change. I get bored in one place, and when I get bored, I self-destruct. So last year I spent 26 days on the John Muir Trail, hiking 256 miles alone. And on like the 23rd day, I was sitting in Tuolumne Meadows with my backpack next to me. And this was a turning point for me. A giant fifth wheel, like a 40-foot fifth wheel, drove by me, and I laughed out loud. I don't even think I knew what I was laughing at first, and then it just kind of dawned on me that that's what America needs to go on vacation. A 40-foot, $200,000 fifth wheel just to go on vacation. And here I'd been living out of a 60-liter backpack for 26 days. And that really got me thinking about my life and thinking about my own 600 square foot apartment and all the crap I had that I didn't need. And got home and started researching another way to live off the grid, where I could do the things I love to do, be in nature more and travel more. And it led me to Bob's site, cheaprvliving.com. And within 5 months, I bought my RV, and 3 months ago I hit the road, and I've been living in it.
Wow.
That's my story.
That's your story. And you know what? One of the things that leaped out at me is here you gave up the things you love, the travel and the backpacking, because that's what we're told to do with our lives.
Yep.
Who cares if you're happy? Be productive.
Yep. And
you were productive and unhappy.
Yep. Yeah. Wait until you retire. That's what we're told, right? Wait until you retire. You can have all your fun and just be happy with your 2 weeks of vacation a year. And I actually just recently was writing about that. We're told that we're supposed to be happy with our 2 weeks while they steal our liberty.
Right, absolutely.
So the first thing I started searching was off the grid living, and I actually even joined a couple forums for people who talked about going into BLM land and national forests and just disappearing. And there are people who actually do that, but that really wasn't feasible for me. So just kind of continued digging deeper into my research, and again, cheap RV living came up, even I think with off the grid living, and I think that was really the first time I had heard about normal people. I use that but you know, people like us, we're not homeless, right? People who just make a decision, make a choice to leave a society that no longer makes sense for them and decide that they're not going to live the lie anymore and decide to go out and find another way. I stumbled upon a whole community of people who think like I do, and who, in retrospect, I've always thought like that. Just, it was kind of buried. And I started seeing that people live in RVs. And so I hit Craigslist and started searching for RVs. And I tend to be a little impulsive, so I had to take my time and really do my research, learn from a lot of videos online about how to buy an RV, what to look for, deciding what size I wanted to live in. I decided on a 29-foot because I decided I want to go as many places as I can, but I also don't, a van didn't make sense for me. I work and I live in there with my dog. I still like some of the creature comforts of home. I like the space, so I decided on an RV as opposed to a van. But I did want something under 30 feet so that I could still go in most RV parks and most campgrounds, and so that even the roads out here, I can still navigate some pretty tricky roads. I've been on some pretty tricky roads. So the 29-foot made sense for me. And then I hit Craigslist, and I probably looked and test drove 10 before I bought one, looking for things like water damage, which is huge. Water damage is huge. So you need to be really diligent about how to look for water damage, looking for soft spots and things like that around the windows, around the roof, looking for stains, and just general engine care, or a general engine. It only had 54,000 miles on it. It's a 1993. One thing that I didn't do that I was going to do that I'm kind of regretting is I didn't take it to a mechanic to get it checked out ahead of time. And so I've had to put a few $1,000s into it that I didn't expect. So I would highly recommend doing that. But that's how I ended up with my RV. I just searched around a lot. So no regrets. The only thing is, now that I have met people living in vans, I've been to an RTR this last week. I think that going big was a good choice in the beginning, but I do see myself maybe in a few years downsizing. I sold everything I own. I have nothing in storage. I sold everything. And so everything, it fits in there. So I was worried about storage. And when we go inside, I have more than enough space. So I definitely don't need the storage. But I think for a transition vehicle, I think going bigger at first, at least for me, I have no regrets on that. So there's a learning curve to driving it, but it really doesn't take that long. A lot of women I meet ask me about that. Isn't it scary to drive? How do you drive it? And I have met a lot of women or couples who own mobile homes, and the women say, I've never driven it because they're scared. And it literally, other than running into things, but that's just me, I'm kind of careless and reckless, and I'm like, it's just a hole. Other than that, it really is not that hard to get used to driving. It really took a week, and I was pretty comfortable with it already.
So, you know, what I hear so often, especially from single women, is that they're afraid, and they would do it. They love the idea of it, but they're afraid. And were you ever afraid?
Yeah, of course. I'm a risk taker by nature, for better or for worse, oftentimes for worse. And I've often said I almost have an unhealthy absence of fear. I'm going to be honest, there's not a lot that scares me. However, with that said, there is fear. I just don't let it paralyze me. Of course, there are things to be concerned about. There are things to be concerned about in everyday life. The thing that scares me the most about this, which probably does scare me more than some of the other things I've done, backpacking solo in the wilderness for 26 days doesn't scare me because psycho killers, serial killers don't go out 50 miles into the wilderness to kill people. Weirdos, drunks on ATVs with cases of Budweiser and groups of guys and shotguns out on roads that I can get to, that they can get to, that scares me a little bit. And I really had to consider how I wanted to protect myself and where I wanted to go. And I toyed with the idea of a gun. I'm kind of mostly anti-gun. I do think that there's a time and a place for a gun, and I wondered if this was that time and that place. There's a video on Bob's website about 3 women talking about safety that really helped me decide that right now that is not the right choice for me. I've got good street smarts. Anybody who's lived in a city has good street smarts. Anybody who has navigated or traveled alone or anything is probably going to be, as long as you know to trust your gut and get out when you need to get out. And I've had to do that. I was on a country road outside of Sacramento, California in the middle of the night, a dirt road that led nowhere, and a bunch of trucks started going by me in the middle of the night, purposely scaring me. They were peeling by my window, purposely trying to scare me. And I learned, and I laid there for a while and said, well, I can just ride it out. And then finally, one got too close, and I said, that's it, I have to go. 11:30 at night, I had to get into my seat, and I had to turn my rig around and exit. lesson number one, always park your rig in your escape direction. It's not easy to park to turn something like that around in a narrow road, and the K-turn becomes you have to try 5 or 6 times before you can wedge it out. So that was a big lesson for me. Always park my rig in my escape route in case I need to leave. But I left, listened to my gut, I left, and no harm done. And when we go in, I'll show you, I've got some things in there for safety that if I have to use, and I've got a dog. So I do have some backups, and I do have some things that make me feel safe.
Feeling safe is 90% of it.
I think so. And just learning to listen to your gut. If something doesn't feel right, move. Don't justify it. And I think especially with women, we justify and we minimize and we tend to do that a lot. And I think if we just learn to I think if we learn to just really listen to that gut feeling, I think 99% of the time we're going to be okay. So this is my 1993 Jamboree Rally. I bought it with, I think, 54,000 miles on it.
54,000?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that was good.
Mm-hmm. Starting to remodel. I didn't like all the wood and all the 90s look of the vinyl and the funky wallpaper and the pink blinds that used to be in here, which you'll see in the back in a minute. Repainted the tabletop because I'm going to repaint my counters. I found countertop paint. So it's paint specifically for countertops. And I'm going to do this dark gray, and I'm going to do the countertop in the kitchen as well. And paint my walls and just kind of make it home.
And as a working girl, you run an office.
Yes.
The desk, the dinette is perfect for that.
Yes. And that's part of the reason I opted for a bigger RV, and I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, is because I do work in here. I wanted space. I can't work outside. I can a little bit, but mostly not. And my routine is I get up first thing in the morning and I work for 4 or 5 hours. And I just really needed kind of a dedicated place to work and then a dedicated place to sleep. And that's just me. That's really what I wanted. I didn't want my bed to be on the other side of the kitchen, like in the 25 foots. So I really wanted a separate bedroom and a separate workspace. And it's come in handy. I've been in the rain where I can't go outside, and I am in here for a couple of days. And I think in a van, I would have gone crazy and claustrophobic by now. I was concerned about storage. I really thought I would need all the storage I have in the bigger model, in the bigger Class C. I don't. I have more than enough storage in here. And one of the things that was really important to me is my bed. I love to be comfortable. My bedroom is my escape, I guess. So
I think most of ours.
Yeah, it's just where you go to relax at the end of a day. So I got rid of the mattress that it came with and brought my Sealy. So this is my actual mattress. It's a queen size. It fit in here just fine. I have storage underneath. So
wow, a lot of storage underneath.
Once again, I have more than enough storage. Half of these clothes I haven't even touched. Well, some of them are winter clothes. Some of my my backpacking gear is down here. Some of my backpacking clothes. You see my backpacking boots. So yeah, tons of storage there. So a couple things about safety. We talked about safety earlier. So
I see a baseball bat.
My handy dandy baseball bat. Wait a minute, I have more. A sword.
Oh, what lady in an RV doesn't have a sword?
This came with the RV. I found it under the mattress when I took the mattress out. I was like, what the hell? I'm going to keep it. So I have a sword.
If I ever came in here and you came at me with that sword, I'd turn around and run.
Right.
Okay,
exactly.
I'm gone.
So I have a sword and I have a baseball bat. And so when I first started, I have a setup every night before I go to bed, especially if I'm out by myself. Being around people last week, friendlies I call them, I'm feeling a lot safer. But what I was doing, and I forgot to point it out there, right next to the door, I have an ice axe, which is another weapon if I need it. And I leave my keys there in case I needed to get out in the middle of the night. I always wanted to know where my keys were. Mm-hmm. And then I'm laying in here one night listening to a homeless man pee outside my door or something, I don't know, making me nervous. He was talking to himself. Laying there, I realized, well, what if I can't get there? I don't know, and I thought it would be nice to have a set of keys here. So I keep a set of keys hung on a hook right up there. So I've got 2 sets of keys. Who knows if I need to jump out a window and then circle back around and get in the rig, who knows? But I just thought it would be a good idea to have keys in 2 places just in case I ever needed to.
It does make sense.
So that is...
So you're not fearful or paranoid, but you're practical. You're
like to
taking a
think
few
so.
small steps
Yeah.
that make you feel safer.
Yeah, and I think it's important when you're out here, man or woman,
Absolutely.
to understand what challenges you could face and to be prepared. Okay, this is the thing. The chances of something bad happening to any of us are like 1 in a million, 1 in 10 million, whatever it is. But you always want to be prepared just in case.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my theory about everything I've done. I'm not afraid, and maybe that's why, because I always take precautions in case, and to make myself feel safe. You know, I don't go into anything blindly or ignorantly. I do my due diligence and my research, and I think things through, and I make sure I have escape plans. A couple things for those of you who have never driven an RV before, and who might be thinking about buying an RV, go out and test drive a bunch. And what I learned that I'm going to share with you now, because I was driving my car that I've been driving for 10 years, I bought brand new. And it's a nicer car, so it drives really smooth. I've been really spoiled. I've been driving a nice car. So every RV I drove really rough, and it steered really rough, and it was loud, and I was like, well, it's just because it's old and it's supposed to drive that way. No. I've learned since I put money into this, it's not supposed to drive that way. So maybe test drive some new ones so you get a kind of a reference point of what they're supposed to feel like. If I had known ahead of time, or if I'd taken it to a mechanic, the catalytic converter's been bad for 3 months. It needed to be changed. It was too loud. It had no power going uphill, and I thought it was just because it was an old truck. So those are some of the things that you can look out for. Just because it's old doesn't mean that it should drive like crap. Check the fluids. All of my fluids were empty. That'll tell you, the people I bought it from were great, and I believe they told me everything they knew about it, but I bought it from somebody who drove it twice a year. They didn't maintain it. All of the fluids were empty. I had no power steering fluid, I had no oil, I had no transmission fluid, and it's running so much better now that I drive it on a regular basis. So those are some things. Check the fluids, because that'll give you a clue as to how well it was taken care of despite what they're telling you. And drive it. Drive a few, and make sure you really understand what one should feel like and sound like and handle like before you finally make a decision. And don't be afraid to take it to a mechanic. I still really wish I had, just so that I knew. My first few weeks out, every time I drove it, I was nervous that something was going to break. And that's not a fun way to start your new life. So if you take it to a mechanic and even know ahead of time what work is going to need to be done on it, it'll just help with your peace of mind.
Very, very good advice. Thank you.
Sure.
A lot of people ask me that. How do I buy a new RV? And you just told them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Well, Carolyn, I really appreciate your sharing your life story with us, and your RV, your little home here. It's a wonderful home.
Thank you.
And folks, I hope you're inspired, as inspired as I am. This is available to anyone, not Superwoman. Anyone can do this.
Anyone can.
Anyone.
It's just a choice.
It's a choice.
We all have choices in life.
And I bet most people have had that epiphany that you had in Tuolumne Meadow. And you took action. That's all that's required. That's all that's required.
Good advice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
And folks, we'll talk to you later. And in the meantime, like us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Bye.
Bye.